Hey, Heather, such a pleasure
Hello.
to have you in this conversation. You've been a client and become a friend of mine over the last 2 years. And in this time, we've really grown through an intimate exchange and the different flux of emotions that we've both gone through in the relationship of not only client and practitioner, but human beings, being two human beings coming together looking for resolution. And this is the reason why I really wanted to do this podcast today and have this conversation, is to talk about the connection that people don't necessarily remember between the professional responsibilities that they have and the human responsibilities that they often neglect within themselves. So with that being said, Heather, today's topic is about understanding what is happening when things start to go into flux, and ways in which we can redirect our conscious state to being a bit more directed toward being productive in the responsibilities that we have in life. And that word responsibility can sometimes have a negative connotation to it. But what I mean by it is the ability to be able to respond, giving people that ability back when they're so clouded by everything else that may have emotionally, physically, biochemically put them into a state of flux.
I totally understand what you're saying. And I hope that the viewers and listeners can connect in. So something I find interesting about what you said is that when we first started getting to know each other, and for those that sort of know us, sort of might know the story, is that you thought that I was, or felt that I was a bit skeptical or a bit guarded. And in actual fact, what was happening was that I was so hopeful and so, just so hopeful. I can't even think of the bit. So hopeful that I was squeezing myself into a tight ball in case that hope oozed out, and it got out. And then it all didn't, it was just another failure. So it was that tension that I had in my body, in my life, in my breathing, and the way that I was, having to move forward through life, seeking answers for myself, and at the same time putting myself as second, as a leader in a community, as a carer of people in businesses, as somebody who serves others and supports others in business. I was always putting myself second, and that was how you were supposed to do it. But I can't serve others if I'm not truly present or myself.
Absolutely.
So that first sort of encounter, and connecting with you and being able to, in some ways, take a breath and be able to say, this man understands what I'm saying. He gets where I'm coming from, and there are solutions. And here's the pathway, here's the path. Are we going to have the courage to get on that journey? And I'm fine with the courage. I will go for the courage. But it did take a little bit of time to release that pressure that I was, that put that cap on it, just in case it's not quite right. We don't want to be disappointed. We don't want to be too over hopeful. So all of these emotions and all of these things that are attached to our everyday life, having to tap them down or to control them a little bit, does not serve our body or our mind with positivity. It actually just leads us into further problems.
It most certainly does. And I must say, you've grown so much since we started working together, and that energy that you were emitting, I knew where it was resonating from. It's fear. We all have a fear that we're not going to be understood, that we're not going to be able to get to a place where we really love ourselves. And this is a big reality as to the reasons why we self-sacrifice and put other people before ourselves. But the reality is that it's only when we're able to really look after and love ourselves so we can actually be of true purpose to others. And the improvements that you've made over the course of the time that we've been working together, your business has flourished. You have flourished.
Mm.
You represent yourself as a positive, beautiful woman that has a knowing that things are continually going for you, that the universe is for you, not against you. And that's very powerful. And the reason why I'm bringing understanding of spirit into what I'm saying, because there's a lot of connotations there to spirituality that I'm citing, is that we often think that when we fix things just in the physical plane, that everything will fall into place. But it's all aspects of ourselves that we really need to address in order for any type of intervention to actually take hold and to create that change within ourselves so that we can be present and enjoy life, not only to serve others, because it's enjoyment and is a very different sensation a person can have in doing their work with joy in service, and in contrast to doing their work in debt of service. And that really comes down to the perspective of how we are feeling within ourselves. Now, that personal situation that you were in, it came about from many, many years of disappointment. And disappointment manifests in people's lives in so many different ways. It sometimes can be from work, it can be from the relationship that we don't necessarily have the healthiest outcome within ourselves, our relationship with ourselves. And sometimes the relationship with ourselves can be the outcome of poor reiteration of worth when we were children, or possibly when we were adults, and certain people that we let into our lives that we trust and love, and maybe just didn't give us necessarily the right forms of motivation. And it's to no fault of their own or to anyone for that extent. At the end of the day, it is something that we absorb, and we make it our own. But just as we make it our own, it's very possible for us to shift that identity and to really understand what we are. And the reason why I say about what we are, the reason why, sorry, the battery was going down. The reason why I had to say about what we are, often people ask, who are you? And people ask, what do you do? But it's very rare that people ask themselves, what am I? What am I? Am I a being of peace, or am I a being of desire? Am I a person of acceptance and willingness, or am I a person that holds on to fear and hesitation? And that's where the first step comes in, is identifying what you are so that you can take the steps to become who you are. Limiting factors that stop us from being our best: brain fog, poor sleep, poor appetite, poor digestion, autoimmune disorders, like you and I both have had moments of flare-ups. But all of these things can be addressed through the utilization of integrated medicine, which we've done with you, using everything from organic acids to bloods and all the things in between. And yes, they do work. But all that they really do, Heather, I truly believe, and I really would like to hear your perspective on this, is that they just give you a breath. It's like that first breath of life when you come into existence, that first breath you take. But it's up to you after that first breath is filled into your lungs by the pressure of the world itself, atmospheric pressure, pushing air into your lungs. But after that, it's your responsibility to contract muscles to exhale so that you can allow more opportunity, blessing, and life to come in again. And I really see that that's what integrated medicine is. It's just a catalyst to allow for the breath of one's opportunity, the breath of one's life to come into full effect. But it's that contraction after you've had that breath. When you're filled up with energy and life, what do you do with it then? And that's what I really want to talk to everybody about today is your experience and share a little bit of my experiences as well, because I truly believe that the best healers that I've come into contact with in the world are those that have gone through some struggle and strife that is very similar to the people in which they're helping. It's very hard to be able to empathize with somebody if you haven't gone through some element of sympathetic comparison. And the reason why I use those two words interchangeably from empathy to sympathy, obviously sympathy is a direct association of something that someone else has gone through that you've gone through, but it's not always the case, but there are similarities. So with that being said, Heather, your journey has had so many ups and downs in working with us. When you were able, and when you were blessed with that breath of your own life, how did that make you feel? And what did you do in order to further grow into where you are now?
The first, and I just took a breath, the first, I took tentative steps to start with. I wanted to run. I wanted to run headlong into it. I wanted to run. And you mentioned before about fear. And my fear was that my hope would be diminished and that there would be no hope for the future. So I was fearful of losing my hope. So I took tentative steps. I took tentative steps using the logic and the experience I had in my past. And that does not take you to your future unless I can make different decisions and have some different. It's the same as if you do the same thing over and over, you're going to get the same result. But that's what we know as humans. Every day we breathe in and out, we eat, we sleep, we do what we do. But for me, I had to understand, and this took a moment for me to really understand that I am not on the same journey that I was on a week ago, a day ago, 2 months ago. I'm on a brand new path. I have been, 50 years with operating in one way that did not work. I was constantly seeking solutions and a better way for myself. And then I started to see that I was on the right path, that I was getting results. Things were starting to shift. I was starting to feel better. My energy increased. My things were shifting. My weight was starting to go down. Things were starting to move. So I was starting to I had to breathe differently. And every time I took in a breath, I had to take a moment to understand that I'm breathing differently now. I have to breathe differently or I will get the same results as I did before. So it was frightening and invigorating at exactly the same time. I'm a person that plans and schedules and has reasonable control of things. I juggle a lot of things. A lot of people rely on me. So I'm very structured. I had to release a lot of that structure for myself personally, which was no easy feat. And taking a moment to spend 10 minutes in my favorite chair, listening to some music that did not have me moving. So it was not upbeat music. It was more about breathing and finding music. And it took me months to find music that didn't annoy me, that wasn't invigorating me, that would just enable me to take a moment for myself and just be in my own body and be in myself, so that when I finished that 10 minutes, I could breathe and start the next step in my journey. So I would do this, every couple of days, and then I would try to do it every day. And then this wasn't fully working for me every day, but I would, I would then, as the month, the weeks moved on and the months went on, and some of the weeks were really hard. They were really, really hard. And I would sit in my chair and, I would have my music and I would breathe and I would cry. And it would just, but it was still, I was on a new journey. And every one of those moments I had a choice. Do I go back or do I go forward?
And so,
And I could not go back. Would not allow myself to go back. I was in uncharted territory. You have to breathe.
I love the fact that I love what you've brought up. And the reason why I love what you brought up is that not every day was easy. And some days you weren't able to instill the practices that you knew you needed to do to bring back harmony. But that doesn't mean you're failing.
No.
That doesn't mean you're going back. And we live in a society where self-flagellation has become part of the norm, especially now that with social media and everybody presenting the best parts of themselves, not the true essence of life, sets for us to put ourselves on a pedestal of which we knock ourselves off of on a regular basis because of judgment, self-judgment.
Take two.
So when we get back to the reflection that we have of ourselves in society, we often go through moments of self-flagellation and judgment. And it's not about getting it right every time, but it's about awareness and being present. You know, something I spoke to a friend this morning about perspective, right? And what one person knows to be their truth is not necessarily another person's reality. Mm. And he cited something from William Shakespeare, and I'm paraphrasing right now. I can't recall the exact dialogue, but William Shakespeare spoke about a spider and a fly. To one of them, what is happening is the end of the life, is the end of the world, it is evil, it is traumatic. To the other, it is what is natural in order for life to continue. And I really resonate with what he said in this call because, you know, often we get directed by what society thinks that we should be or who we are. And you know this, when people meet you, they say, what do you do for a living? And automatically, based upon letters or titles or labels, they automatically create an idea of who and what you are.
Yeah. And
that's what's crippling us. It's what's crippling our authenticity in this world behind passion and purpose. And Elon Musk said it so well. And I'm not slating education here. I'm an advocate of education, as you know. But education was never meant to be a right or hierarchy. It was never meant to make one person more important than another, but it was rather to empower us as a collective to help one another in better ways. And Elon Musk said something really recently. He said, you know, degrees are completely overrated because what really matters in life is passion and purpose. Mm-hmm. And although it may be construed as though I'm digressing now from what we're talking about, but I'm not. It's easy to make immediate changes. And the 3-week rule, as everybody knows, change a habit. It's easy to change a habit, no matter what anybody thinks. But in contrast to knowing who you are through understanding what you are, it's easy to change habits. But what is difficult to really do is once you've been given that breath of life, that chance to pull yourself back into the present moment, is to realize that in your present moment, that you have the opportunity to become more authentic to yourself. Mm. You know, life is all a conjuring of perception. Your reality could be vastly different to mine, and we would never know. We would never know. We estimate that certain things happen to us all in the same manner. But there's so many things that we don't understand about life, so many more things that we don't understand about life than all the things that we've tried to quantify within this existence that we call the human consciousness. But it's really in letting go of the need to put a label and to control the outcome, and to grasp and take hold of that breath, that you empower yourself to take back being present and actually live again. And I feel like a lot of people have stopped living. You know, and myself included, there have been points in my life where I've stopped living, even being, you know, a practitioner of integrative medicine, that you become so blindsided by the headlights of doing so much and being productive and creating something, and almost falling into the essence of ego rather than the essence of true health. And that ego being either creating a legacy or having more people appreciate and love you, which is, I think, one of the biggest motivations that most of us do things for, right? Let's be honest here. Most of us want to be successful because we want to be acknowledged. And that comes down to, in an innate part of ourselves, the childlike self, the child within all of us that just wants to be acknowledged and to be loved. Yet, in striving for understanding, acknowledgement, and love, we've developed all these symptoms, these diseases, because we're going about it the wrong way. And if I look at your story, Heather, and how you've changed the way in which you've gone about understanding how to love yourself, it hasn't been from the productivity that you give to the world, although you are more productive and you have more energy and you're able to do your job with greater ease, which is so important, because work is not meant to be hard. It's meant to be pleasurable. You know, we've, especially in the last century, which was very patriarchal in nature, actually the last millennia, which has been very patriarchal in nature, we've come up with this understanding that you need to grind, you need to sacrifice in order to be successful. But the reason why we want to be successful is to be loved and acknowledged. That's one of the biggest roots as to why we want success in our lives. And there's no greater sense of security than feeling loved. So we've gone about, I really believe as a society, as humanity as a whole, we've gone about this all the wrong way. Is that we've pushed ourselves to the point where we need not have to. We applaud those who work 12, 16-hour days and give them a badge of honor for doing so. But these are not things that life was meant for. Life was not meant for complete sacrifice of oneself at the expense of stressing one's mind to points where we were never designed to go to. Spending 10 hours behind a computer screen, drinking scrupulous amounts of stimulants in order to do so, going to bed wired, waking up tired, which is the opposite of what should naturally happen. This is not what we were meant to be about. This is not what we were put on this earth for. This is not the blessing and the gift that I believe God, goddess, divinity, whatever label you wish to believe in, has created life to be manifested in. So with everything I'm saying now here, you know, my specialty obviously is in integrated medicine. I wholeheartedly believe in it. And the reason why I believe in integrated medicine so much, Heather, is, you know this. We didn't ever just tackle your symptoms.
Correct.
We looked at you as an individual.
Yeah.
We looked at you as being a light being that was worthy of love, that was worthy of having life and given back to her.
Yeah. You were able to connect all of the internal bits, the good bits, the bad bits, the problems, the past, the present, and look at the whole person. And for the first time not first time, but in conjunction with you, I was able to do the same thing. And it enabled me to, you know, you can say to people, you know, go and look in the mirror, what do you see? But people will focus in on something they're supposed to see as in perception, their own perception, or they'll focus on a flaw. But I had the opportunity And I chose to look at the whole picture and at the whole thing. I didn't just look at my flaws, which was hard, really, really hard to do, to not look at the flaws or not look at what was the past, to look with different eyes. They're the same eyes, but to look with open mind, to breathe and see the bigger picture. And I really liked that what you offered and what you were about enabled me to be on that journey with you. It wasn't about, here you go, here's a script. Here you go do this exercise. Here you go, do this. Here you go, do this. It was about me being an active part of my own results.
And
it was really important.
The reality on that, Heather, is, I've come to know a fair amount of aspects within the current medical paradigm, and I respect it. I really respect doctors for what they do and the sacrifice that they put themselves through to become educated to the point where they save lives. I would never take that away at all. But unfortunately, we've developed a society that's to no fault of doctors. It really isn't. It's to the fault of us as a collective. We've created a society of instant gratification whereby you take a pill for an ill, and not looking at alternative mechanisms that can be of help and aid. And often, unfortunately, when alternative methods have been put forward as a possible solution, that they have been scrutinized or been cited as something, firstly, unhealthy, secondly, something that is in opposition to what they have been taught within a paradigm that pretty much has been set up to fuel pharmaceutical agenda. And this is be transparent here. One of the biggest things that comes along with in mainstream medicine is a script path of things that are approved by a collective of people, yet other means of healing that are natural from the earth can often be scrutinized and be labeled as something harmful. And that doesn't sit well with me. I'm grateful for pharmaceuticals. I would not deny it. It's helped me. But it doesn't sit well with me that one is preferred of the other, particularly when there have been studies and situations that have been silenced as to their ability to liberate people from what I'm saying right now, the ego. Liberate people from their identity of ego, the hierarchy of importance that they've created themselves to live within, to give themselves a sense of identity, because they're too afraid to really let go and understand who they are. Who they are. Not the labels of what they do, but who they are. And this is why, they're looking at it through a scope of integrated medicine, we use alternative therapies. And I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to go into more detail because I know that those who are aligned to what I'm talking about will understand my passion behind it. And my passion behind it comes with conviction of knowing that it's worked for so many.
It worked for me.
And
it was for me, the combination was important as well, because we looked at so many ways to tackle the journey I was on, one foot in front of the other. Natural remedies, pharmaceutical. We had a combination of things to see what would work, and that was one of the things that was such a gift for me, is that I was able to incorporate or be part of the whole, my whole body, my whole responses to things. So, I'd go down a journey and things would start to go really well, and then there would be a big dip and something would not go, and then we would adjust and refine. And it wasn't about take this or do this. It was about it continuing to check in with myself. It's like, how am I doing? How am I coping? What's it, are we on the right track? Is everything moving along really nicely? And I love that about alternative medicine. I love that that there is a combination and an adjustment that can be made for the person, for the individual, because we might all be, you know, humans, but we're all individual in our own bodies and how we work and react to things. And at times, so I really liked that what was happening with me was happening with me, and I could be okay with that, even if it wasn't so pleasant sometimes. And when it was pleasant, I could be okay with that as well.
I think that's also so important what you're just saying right now. There is that healing isn't pleasant.
Not
It isn't.
The journey was rough in some spots.
Of course, and it's meant to be. You know,
it was ugly in some spots. It was bad.
It is. And when the body goes through detoxification, it's not nice. It's not pretty. It is overwhelming, and you feel like you're doing the wrong thing. And it's very important to have that soundboard, that when you feel like things are not going right, that you can actually have somebody else that listens, looks at things subjectively, but objectively as well. It's so important. And this is also something that people have grown so fearful of, is actually embracing the pain and learning from it. We're so adamant to avoid pain. And you can see this because the volume of sales for pain medication has not decreased since its incorporation to society. It's increased, right? Opioid use and addiction, from codeine to right through to oxytocin, oxycodone, and everything else that's been prescribed, often becomes abused. Why? Because people are looking for a temporary relief.
Yeah.
Now, the reality is that there are certain things and there are certain interventions and mechanisms that can help you to liberate yourself from being in a perspective of pain, but the pain is still present so you can work through it. And there are other means of which completely dull the pain and you don't grow or learn through it at all. And I am, for one, a stronger advocate of giving yourself a breath, but not giving yourself oblivion.
Yeah.
Being oblivious to what's going on is like being an ostrich with your head in the sand, hoping that everything goes away. But meanwhile, the lion is still approaching and you will be devoured by your own devices.
Yeah, with your butt up in the air. I mean, who wants that? Life is not, you should not be an ostrich ever, because butts in the air exposed. You say the lion is coming. I mean, in reality, who really wants that? Someone sneaking up behind them.
And I think the worst person to sneak up behind you is yourself, because we are the masters of our own universe. We really are. We are the creators of our own manifestation. Whether it is that we're born into poverty or into riches, it is irrespective of the fact of what we perceive in our life. Suffering is always subjective, isn't it? And that's why I bring up the difference between the rich and the poor, because often, in society, people say, "Oh, but you wouldn't understand because you haven't been what I've been through." That's correct. I haven't been through what a lot of people have been through. I have no doubt about that, because there is almost 8 billion people. I think it's 8 billion people in this world now. So for me to have been through what everybody's been through is very unlikely. Yeah. But what I do know is that in our individuality, that the perception that we have of suffering is very subjective. And our suffering can be alleviated and liberated by ourselves, through ourselves, by firstly looking toward seeking help, toward giving yourself the opportunity to help yourself. I think that's the biggest take-home message here, is that everybody that I've helped, and I'm really appreciative of the applause and the gratitude that's been given to me, but everybody that I've helped, the only thing that I've done is utilize quantitative measures of the world, different forms of diagnostics, to ascertain how I can give you that breath. But that's it. Once you have that breath, where you are sitting right now, Heather, that is the outcome of you realizing that once you had that breath in your lungs, that you needed to contract to exhale so that you can receive more of what you wanted from life.
Yeah. And it was a moment of when I realized, and it took a while because I was on a journey of exploration as I was going through this. I was on a journey of change, and I was, there were so many elements and so many new things I was learning about myself. So it took some time to really connect into that. The steps moving forward are now fully on me. I can be guided and supported and be part of more information and be part of a program. I can be all of those things. But in the end, what I do and how I choose to do it is going to bring me the most success, or the outcome that I really want. And the success, unlike in normal life, was not about the human element of craving someone's love. It was about giving love to myself. It was about saying it is okay to be me in this body, in this state, even when okay was a bad day or okay was a good day. It didn't matter. It was part of who I was and the journey that I'm going on. And it's really created an environment where I can have a lot more mental fortitude. The decisions that I need to make, I can make them in a stronger way. I don't have to deliberate as much as I used to in the past, because I'm much more confident about being able to take a breath and be centered and be have a better grasp on what needs to happen, or when. I have less anxiety or stress that bubbles up, and any woman that's sort of going through menopause and postmenopause, anxiety levels start shooting up. But mine have been more stable. They don't fluctuate off the charts, and that's because I know what's going to happen. I can feel it, and I can make a choice to breathe, to take a moment to, it's like we're going to deal with some anxiety, which is going to create this problem and this problem. And when you get on the scales, you're going to be fatter because so I now have choices about, the outcomes for me in my life. And it's such a blessing to be able to have that control, that knowledge that it's on me. Sure, I still need help, and sure, I still need to check in, and we're humans. We still have needs, and we still need guidance and all of those things. But the choices about who I am and where I'm going come from me.
Absolutely, and the ability to be able to breathe is something that cultivates it.
Yeah, and how you breathe. I'm out there running. And even my running, when I start getting tired, I'm not breathing hard. I choose to breathe slow, and you just keep it, because that's going to get me where I need to go stronger. I have some serious choices about controlling and supporting. I think that's really important for me, because I'm never been supporting my body as much, or like controlling it and getting it to do things. But now I can really support it and give it the power that it needs to take me forward.
I think what you're saying right now is something that a lot of people really, really need to hear, particularly people that are going through flux in their life, and those are not just that of, in the past, I would have always tried to refer back to the audience, the person I was speaking to, women that have gone through menopause in your case. But that's not fair. And the reason why it's not fair is because there are men and women that go through flux in their life.
Yeah.
And some of those fluxes are caused by a shift of physiology. Other fluxes are caused by a change in psychology and life issues. But what is so important right there is the fact that even though these changes were coming to you in your life, is that you had the capacity to breathe again. And you took that capacity, and now you're in a better state than you probably were before menopause even hit you energetically.
Yes.
And that's the thing about energy, is like, Tesla was such a genius during his time. And the things of which he stated around energy is that it is freely given. In essence, that's the biggest sentiment that he conveyed, is that free energy is easily accessible and should be freely, and is also freely given by the universe to us. And this is the reason why I'm also a very big fan and follower of Elon Musk, because he resonates so closely to what Tesla stood for. And he revived a lot of the workings that he has started that was silenced by others. Not to point fingers, which I'm not going to do this, I won't cite any names, but a lot of his works were stolen and feats of accomplishment were altered, or were either portrayed as being insincere, if that's a word. Insincere.
Insincere is a word.
Right. Yet, I think out of all the scientists that have ever lived, he was probably the most sincere of what he wanted to give to the world. And that is so important to remember, is that when you are trying to change yourself, you're firstly going to have to compete with all the critics within your own mind. And that's the hardest audience to win over. And in addition to that, once you start to change and you start to see positive change, initially what will happen, and I've seen this time and time again with you and with Jill, and you two are probably my longest standing clients. And you guys are so similar in so many ways, and being powerful women in your own right. But once you start to change, you'll have applause. But then as you continue to change and you surpass those that were applauding you, you will have criticism come to you. And it's in these exact moments that you need to be steadfast and hold true to your breath. And bringing it back again to the personal elements that can compromise professional ability to respond. We all go through stuff in life. Right? Sometimes it's imposed upon us by a disease. Other times it is created by the circumstances of certain relationships not working out in the way in which we thought they would, in the way in which we placed our loved in. And in all of this, it's very, very important to remember that there are solutions that one can take. And the biggest solution that you can gift yourself is taking out the fog that takes you away from being present in the moment of life, taking away the fear of the future, of things that may happen or may not happen, and taking away the resent or the regret of things that have either been done to you or that you have done of the past, so that you can be here in the now. Here in the now. Having just read Robin Sharma's book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, he talks a lot about this, about being in the now. About one phrase that came out the book was, and I'm paraphrasing once again, is people have a lot of liberty, but they don't have a lot of free will.
Yeah.
And he was comparing when a corporate professional answers a pager and leaves his family at the drop of the hat to answer the call, but neglects to ask himself the question, what is really important in life in this moment? Because the reality is, the only real thing we have in this life isn't the money in our pockets, isn't the car we drive, isn't the status that we've achieved through education, but it's time. That's the only gift we really have, is time. And when we aren't conscious of how we're able to utilize our time, in other words, we become less productive in life because of factors of poorer health or factors of poorer perception of what it is a priority in life, that's when we lose time. We lose the one gift that we really only have. It's the only thing that is that has true worth.
Yeah.
And it's the only thing you never get more of.
And it's the one thing that we constantly want to get past to the next bit. It's like we want to rush it. When we're young, we want to be older. When we're older, we're constantly rushing rushing time. We're throwing away a gift that we don't know how much we have left. You can never repeat it. You don't get it back. And we're throwing it away or trying to get past it, quicker. And this was one of the things that, and when you mentioned about, Jill and I, where we kind of get we hit a plateau or we hit a sort of a space, I chose to learn to, and it's something that you used to say to me, it's like, trust in the process, have faith in the future. And it's like, yeah, but I'm stuck in the, and I need to get to the, right. So there's all of these kinds of, and then, and then the energy starts shifting. And then I had to sort of, take a breath, and it's like, I am in this moment right here. And what is my moment? Am I okay? Because that was always a question. Am I okay? Do I need, am I okay? And yes, I'm okay. Where do I want to go? And what can I do to help myself get to that next stage? And quite often it was that I need to do nothing but stop stressing or stop trying to get past it. You cannot push time. You can change your clock. You can do whatever you want. At the end of the day, you can go to bed early, but the day is still the day. So it was something that I had to learn, and it was a hard lesson to learn because I'm on the path and I'm like, I need to run now. Well, none of this walking business, ladies, we are on the run. And it was one of those things. So it's when I hit a wall or something it just wasn't moving the way that it was in the past or that it should. I had to accept, check in, I'm okay. I had to accept where I'm at and have a breath and think about, how can I move myself? What can I do to help move forward? Sometimes the answer was, I can do nothing but stay where I am, acknowledge that I'm okay, and try and be as kind to myself as I possibly can. I do not need to breathe fast. I do not need to run down the path to try and get past this. I need to walk this moment. It could be an hour a day. Sometimes it was a week, and sometimes it was a long time. But it eventually, every time, my body, myself, was able to move to the next stage. It was a hard lesson.
It is a hard lesson, but it's a powerful lesson to learn, because what I'm hearing from you right now is complete self-empowerment and letting go of attachment, having non-attachment. And that's so, that is a powerful characteristic to be able to adopt, is to have non-attachment and to be present. Now, when we were talking about trust in the process, it's happening. In essence, when there's fear in the now, it's actually not the fact that we are living in the now. We're actually living in recollection of the past. And Eckhart Tolle speaks so extensively about this in his book, The Power of the Now, coincidentally, in which we think that we need to go through a certain flux of debilitating emotion. And there's nothing wrong with crying. There's nothing wrong with feeling remorse or anger in a moment. But there is something that defeats the purpose of self-growth when we identify that as our own, or when we identify ourselves within these elements. When we start to victimize ourselves in all of this. I can't run fast now. I am this. I have to run fast now. I've just got to do this now. I've got to finish this project now. Now. But meanwhile, you're not in the now. You're not in the now. What you're in is in the fear of what may not happen in the future if you do not live up to stressing yourself to get things done in a way in which you want to control how life unfolds itself. And which is absolutely ridiculous, because we, in essence, if you think about it, we are 8 billion plus souls spinning around on a rock in the middle of nowhere, gravitating very closely to a radiation hub that can create life and destroy life dependent upon a slight alteration of orbital rotation. That is life. That is the reality of our existence. we are not in control. We
Nope.
do not
Nope.
have the ability to change the outcome of what the universe wants for us. But what we do have the ability to do is to bring ourselves into the present moment. Right now, sitting here speaking to you halfway across the world, the present moment is I can feel my body. There's nothing threatening me. Right now, I'm exchanging heart and energy with somebody else in this moment. But we can easily detract ourselves from the blessing of this moment, which is, for me right now, I feel so privileged to share this with you because it's something that's really, I feel passionate about. Because it's not just something that came from the science of what I understand, but it comes from the heart of what I know. But I could easily have deprived myself of this opportunity by thinking about all the labs I have to analyze, in my case, or thinking about all the clients I need to contact, or thinking about all the bills that need to be paid for a business, as every business does have. Or even worse yet, thinking about what other people are currently thinking about me. And we can detract ourselves from what's happening in the now, right now. And as soon as we do that, we stress ourselves and we take away the most beautiful gift that was given to us at the start of our lives, which is the breath.
I love that.
Heather, it was an absolute pleasure. Is there anything else that you would love to leave the audience to think about before we close?
I think for me, being able to share that it's not always easy. You don't always get it right. It's a learning. I don't ever want to get it right and nail it. And it's like, that's it. My life's done. I've achieved my own, perfection. I will still strive and still breathe, and I'll still make mistakes, and I will still learn more about myself. But something that I get up in the morning now and I get dressed and I look in the mirror and I smile. Even if I'm tired or I've been running, or it's like, oh, look, I've got a little fat roll there, or, oh, my hair's not quite right today. I smile because I'm happy with me, and I'm able to do that because I can check in on myself and I can start my day being present and being all of me. And I'm able to give to my team, I'm able to give to the businesses I work with, I'm able to support and serve others. And there's still enough for me that at the end of the day, I might be tired, but I'm happy. I'm well and I'm happy. And that inner, to take a line from Kung Fu Panda, inner peace. I love that, Panda. Inner peace. It's really lovely, and it's super powerful. It energizes and strengthens the person that I am to do the things that I really want to do. So I think that my advice to anybody is take a moment, find what works for you in whatever moment, sitting in a chair or just taking that moment of quietness, removing some of the noise that is life, remove some of it, and just think for a moment and go into yourself and ask yourself, am I okay? How am I? How am I feeling? Am I, just check in with you. You would do it for a friend and it's like, hey, how are you? Do it for you. That would be my best advice. And that was something that you've taught me, and I've been able to take on board for myself. And it's the greatest gift I could have ever been given, was the path to help myself and to travel this path with you, Justin. Thank you.
You're so welcome, Heather. It was and it still is an absolute honor. And I really mean that from my heart. I honestly believe when we come together as soul beings, as sovereign beings, we get through the noise and we grow together. So I appreciate you thanking me for being a part of your journey, but I'd also like to thank you for being a part of mine too. Because in helping me heal, you're also healed a lot of things within myself too. And that's the most beautiful thing about doing this work, is that it's reciprocated. on so many levels when it's done properly. It's not just about give, but it's about an equal exchange of growth. So thank you,
Yeah.
Heather, for enabling your growth, but also enabling my growth in being your practitioner, and along the way in which you've now gotten to the point where you're taking life by the horns and you're riding that bull to new, greater heights. So thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Have a wonderful day. Take care, Heather.
You too. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
All right.